Now, my opening bum makes me want to buy a GMC truck. Seriously, doesn't just want me to go and get a Jimmy? Do they make Jimmys anymore?
I don't think there is a GMC Jimmy anymore, no.
You do remember the Jimmy.
Wasn't that the Blazer? Wasn't that the GMC's Blazer?
Yeah, it was a Blazer with a different name. Who are they fooling? It is a Twins Tuesday. It's the Jeff Dubay Show. Ted Schwetzler. It's Schwetzler, right?
Oh,
You're
boy.
right
Here we go
the first
again.
time. You were right the first time.
Schwetzler, Brandon Warren, Jason McGovern. One thing I realized after the show last week, so I think let you guys get your plugs in. Get your plugs in. You got. I mean, you write for places.
Yeah, I got at Brandon_Warren on Twitter, writing on Fangraphs, BrandonWarren.com. Where else? That's probably about it for right now. Doing a little bit of radio stuff here and there. Cold Omaha. Don't want to forget about that. 105 The Ticket. I'm on with those guys every Monday at 6 o'clock, about 5:55.
What guys? Which guys?
The Superstar and Ben Holson. So lots of good things going on. And if you follow me on Twitter, you can keep up with all that.
Hell of a baseball mind, the Superstar.
Okay.
At TL Schwers. Yeah, we got the little beat there. At TL Schwers on Twitter, and then offthebaggy.blogspot.com. For content, that's really it. Twitter's easiest.
Well, I mean, that's why you do stuff like this. You know, you can get your shit out there. So plug away. And I felt bad that I did not give you the opportunity a week ago. The week that was, I mean, a few things happened. I mean, there are a few roster moves. I mean, I'm being facetious. Ted, I mean, you've almost been up in arms every time they do something. I mean, I pick up Twitter and you talk about these moves causing more questions and answers and this and that. I mean, it's spring training.
Ted's pissed again.
It's the vicious Twin Cities sports media again.
Hey, if I'm not mad, they're not doing anything, right?
Exactly.
Have we seen the last of Aaron Hicks? Let's start there.
No.
No.
But I think it's a contrast to the last 3 years or last 2 years where they let him basically play his way into a role on opening day, and he didn't do that this spring. And they're basically on the fool me 3 times thing with Hicks, where look, you're going to go to AAA and you're going to earn your way back up here, or quite frankly, Eddie Rosario is going to leapfrog you, and Byron Buxton isn't too far behind.
I think my biggest problem with that is he played in my perspective, he played his way to the big leagues last season. He was demoted to AA. He hit well at AA. He hit well at AAA. He had a good season after he was demoted. That was the first time in his career that he'd done both successively. He was promoted in 2013 after a good spring training from AA. So if you're going to say now that, okay, your spring wasn't conducive to you being a major league player, you've essentially said that his last, I don't know how many months it was, 4 months going from AA to AAA, where he did prove it, really didn't matter. And more importantly, you did so in favor of 2 guys that are not major league outfielders. I mean, Jordan Schaefer and Shane Robinson.
But you made this point last week that you and I agreed upon. It's not about results with certain guys. It's how they do stuff. And he continues to piss them off. He got pulled out of a spring training game this year for not knowing how many outs and making a base.
Without a doubt.
Come on.
That's part of his biggest problem.
He's an idiot.
Is that, he can't get out of his own way. I mean, you can't make those kind of mistakes in spring training at the major league level. It doesn't matter when. You get in the game.
He hasn't earned the bad spring training leash either, like Glenn Perkins or Brian Dunsing even.
Right.
And we can argue about if Dunsing should have or shouldn't have. Now, the thing about Robinson, too, that looks good for the team is that proves to maybe priority free agents that you sign that are lower tier, non-roster guys, that they can come in and earn a spot on your team. That looks good when you're trying to find guys that fill out your roster. Now, the trouble is you don't want to be that team that all these non-roster invitees are going to go after because you're going to stock the roster with 5 of them. 2 of them you can live with. 3 of them, and then you start to get a little more dicey. But they basically have a merit-based promotion system for guys to earn their way onto the team if they do well enough in spring training. Shane Robinson earned it, and Aaron Hicks didn't. And so I see what you're saying in the sense that he was good down the stretch, and even when he came up to the Twins in September, he did. His numbers weren't great, but he was hitting more line drives.
Wasn't he passed over in September last year? Pretty sure he was passed over in September last year.
I think he was.
Yeah, because they wanted to prove that point.
Okay, maybe I'm just missing it then. But anyway, he looked better down the stretch, especially with AA and AAA, and so he just hadn't earned the leash of not performing in spring training like some guys have.
I guess, and it's not so much that it was Hicks. I think part of the issue I have, too, is that a week before the roster moves were made, we heard that, either Rosario was going to play his way onto the roster or not be on the roster, and the same thing for Hicks. And both Jordan Schaefer and Shane Robinson profile as 4th outfielders. They're defensive guys that can't hit. And so then a week later, both Rosario and Hicks don't make the roster, and now you have Molitor saying he doesn't want to like label it a platoon, but he's going to platoon Schaefer and Robinson, who neither can hit, and Jordan Schaefer can't play outfield.
Well, here's what's happening. And we had Molitor on the show every Wednesday, I think it was, in the 2013 season. And his attention to detail. I mean, obviously, every organization does, and previous regimes here have as well. Kelly, Gardenhire, whatever. But Molitor's attention to detail is freakish. It's almost. I mean, if you had to play for him, you might almost be annoyed by it. It's the right way to manage, but like he would. I mean, we're talking about a guy who could coach base running. I mean, that's breaking it down. I mean, that's reading pictures and getting jumps. I mean, he breaks down every detail of the game to an extent that I've never heard anybody else ever do. I mean, it's pretty impressive. And I believe that if this wasn't his first spring training, if this was his 5th year, he might let Hicks slide. But he's about making statements and letting people know what he's about right now.
This is more about Hicks than anything else. It isn't saying that Shane Robinson's a good player. It's saying, look, Aaron Hicks, this is it.
I think it's him saying, if you're going to come here and be an idiot, no matter who you are, you're not making this.
This is the last option here he has too. I mean, this is sink or swim, and he could easily push aside one of the other guys, or somebody could get hurt, and he could be the first call up in mid-April. It's not saying this is a death sentence for him, but it's definitely.
That suck? If you got sent down, you actually got killed.
Right? Yeah.
Seriously,
that's in other countries.
In Soviet Russia.
Yeah, it's not a bus ride. It's a firing squad.
Oh,
I think that's kind of one of the scarier things about Hicks is that you just got beat out by two guys that probably have the offensive ceiling as you, but you got beat out because you don't mentally get there. And
he's a first-round pick, and he's got a perfect body for this. I mean, he's a dream athlete.
He's a monster athlete.
And
he's a toolsy guy, and he continues
he's a tool.
Exactly.
I mean, he dropped switch hitting last year and picked it back up. What the hell is that?
And he continues to get in his own way. I mean, if it's spring training, major league, how do you not know how many outs there are? How do you not hustle in on an infield or a pop fly that's near the infield?
You get shit for that when you miss it in beer league softball.
Yeah, those are things that cannot cost you a roster spot.
Yeah, and you've got to know, too, that you've got a first-year manager trying to let people know what he's about.
Especially
he's not going to let anything slide.
Especially when you hit 200. If you're batting 450, fine. But you can't even swing the bat and you're going to do that stuff? Come on.
Yeah, if Mike Trout forgets somebody else, you're going to sweep that under the rug.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
not Aaron Hicks. Not Aaron Hicks.
Yeah, no, you are correct. I mean, it's I don't know. I've given up thinking they're never going to get anything out of him. I mean, I was hoping he could be a reasonable stopgap to Buxton, then move to a corner spot. But they might not even need him in a corner spot. I mean, just enough's enough. But it's always a shame when it's a first-round pick and somebody who's got physical tools, physical skills that jump off the charts.
Yeah, at this point, they'll put Plouffe in a corner and put Sano at third and just say, forget about Hicks, you're the fourth outfielder or whatever. They just dangle him out there. At this point, Plouffe is a much more viable option in a corner than Hicks is.
And you've regressed to the point where you're no longer any higher of a tier than Eddie Rosario is. I mean, the fact that he spent 50 games or suspended last year probably was the reason that he wasn't even considered for a September call-up, other than the fact that he didn't play well after he came back. But at this point, Hicks has nothing to stand on that Eddie Rosario doesn't either. So if he comes out and craps a bed to start the year, you can believe that Rosario is going to be that first call-up. They're not just going to go to Hicks because you've been here.
I was always I'm going to completely contradict myself here because every season Santana is the shortstop of the future. But maybe they could have waited 1 year. I mean, he might have been the answer in center field this year. I mean, couldn't they played? I mean, you keep throwing all these Latin infielders at me. Throw one of them in shortstop and let Santana play center for 1 year.
I think the thing is they're not in an answer spot; they're in a question spot. So they're going to keep asking questions until it's time to get answers. And I think they believe if Santana can't stick it short, then back to center it is. But at the same time, if you string him along any further, knowing ultimately that you do have the center fielder of the future at Double-A and just a couple of hot months away, you really do got to go with him at short. I think the guy that should be most upset is Escobar. I mean, you hear about Pelfrey stewing about losing a spot that he thought he had earned. Look at freaking Eduardo Escobar, who had like 38 doubles last year, played nice defense at short.
Tearing up spring training.
And they're like, oh, and you're going to be the utility guy. Now, I'm not saying that's not his ceiling or that's not a fair role for what he could regress to, But talk about a guy who so far hasn't complained about it and seems to be a team first guy. And then Pelfrey, who's recanted on those comments a little bit, but I just thought Pelfrey didn't have nearly as much to complain about as Escobar.
No.
Well, I mean, it was a pretty interesting, 48 hours. I mean, when he did not win the rotation spot. I mean, he threw pretty much lights out in spring training. I mean, he had the bad outing at the end, but I mean, his ERA was barely over 1. He had some strikeouts. He put some guys on base, but he's throwing it hard. I mean, he was humping it up. And he said that he was told it was going to be an open competition, and if you go down there and you pitch better than Tommy Malone in your eyes, you're going to think it's not an open competition. But I was really surprised that stuff came out of him. I mean, he's not a kid. I thought he'd be smarter than that.
Yeah, and I think that I touched on it a couple pieces about Pelfrey lately. I think that
Is that Crisco? Who is that?
I think he got stuck in a spot where he took those words a little bit. I mean, GMs give lip service all the time. They're going to give lip service to a player just like they're going to give lip service to the media. And to say that it's an open competition, to a certain extent, how can you overvalue, 10, 15 innings down in spring compared to the fact that you've been a train wreck the last 2 years?
Yeah.
You even if your lights out, Tommy Malone's a capable pitcher, so is Trevor May.
Well, part of it is that Pelfrey can pitch out of the pen. I'm not sure Malone would give him much out of the pen.
Yeah,
You're getting arms that can't throw that hard.
The weird thing about Malone is that everything that you can say about him applies to Pelfrey too.
The weird thing with Malone is that he spells his name M-I, not M-A.
Right,
That's
yeah.
the weird thing about Malone.
Yeah, Mayday Malone, right?
wanna know.
The weird thing is, though, that you talk about everything you've got invested in Malone. Pelfrey's got a bigger contract, also signed through this year, like Malone is. So it's not like Pelfrey's just a throwaway scrub guy that they thought, it's just a scrap heap guy. I do believe the bullpen thing is the thing, and I think even in their minds, they got to have that lefty in the rotation. As much as we sit here and kind of, hand wave that and say, come on, you really would rather have Trevor May in there than a token lefty. I still think the Twins look at it that way.
And I think with Malone, too, I know that I was talking to quite a few people today on Twitter even that are still upset about Tommy Malone.
Really?
You cannot be mad about the fact that you have a Major League starter as your fifth starter. It's not Cole DeVries anymore.
Yeah.
He is a placeholder, fine. If Tommy Malone blows up, be mad that he's still pitching, but he's not going to stop Alex Meyer or Trevor May from taking that rotation spot if he has 3 crappy outings. They're
Well,
going to be there.
And then the nice thing is, too, is having him around means you didn't have to bring up a guy too early.
Exactly.
I mean, you can be patient.
People get way too wound up about the 23rd,
yeah.
24th, 25th man, and
It doesn't matter.
the angst factor right now with this team and the possibility of another 90-loss season means that the Twins go out and they change uniforms, and people say, "Oh, don't spend money on new uniforms, spend it on a new pitcher." Like, they can't even rationally think this stuff anymore.
People are
It's
just
just
idiots.
Like, are you serious right now? Like, they went out and they built a new bar in left field. Should have spent it on a reliever. Like,
As if that money is coming from the same
Yeah,
pool.
how do you
and
even- how do
they
you
have
even
any idea how the
rationalize-
finances
Yeah, I
work.
mean, a bar is going to make money. In
Right,
left field.
right,
It's not like
right.
it's not expense.
especially if you stink, then you're going to make a lot
Yeah,
more money out of that bar.
that's
So-
ironic.
Look at the Phillies. They're serving liquor this year.
yeah, right.
that sounds like a really good idea in Philadelphia.
Yeah,
by the
Hey,
way.
man, they're
seriously,
all
so
going to be
bad.
wasted.
well, the Fanatics had a drinking problem for years, so
Yeah,
this could
well.
really get ugly.
Yes.
The batting order is starting to take shape. Dozier's clearly in the 2-hole. Molitor says over and over that he likes him there. I mean, Dozier can handle the bat. That's what you want in the 2-hole. You want a guy who can make contact, you can hit and run with, you can do some things, but you don't want to give up a guy who might have your best right-handed power on the team.
The other thing is he strikes out quite a bit too, and so you're not moving the guy from first to second. And that's before you consider any regression potential from Danny Santana, who runs like the wind but doesn't get on base outside of hits. So if you regress offensively from a batting average standpoint, he's not taking walks to cloud the bases either. So I think what you might see is if Santana regresses like we expect, it's a pretty easy swap out to drop him to the 9 and move everybody up. You got Joe Mauer hitting second, Brian Dozier hitting first. Now, I still think, there's not a lot of movable parts. There's not a lot of other guys that really would look ideal batting leadoff because you're not going to do Arcia, Vargas, Hunter. That as much as we'd like, they won't do Mauer. And then you get bottom order, the kind of guys. Plouffe isn't a leadoff hitter. Suzuki's not a leadoff hitter.
Schaefer isn't.
No, Schaefer would be because it's 1985 again, and they just love speed up there. But that's not the way the game works today. So you're basically limited to Dozier and Santana up there if you are immediately dismissing out of hand having Mauer bat leadoff. And so, I mean, any of the top 3 guys could do it. I still think it's tough, like you said, with Dozier because then you are kind of neutralizing some of the power from arguably your best right-handed power bat from a home run standpoint. you should have him lower in the order to drive in more runs. But I don't know.
I think that we probably saw it. Was it last night from Molitor? I think that was probably the opening day lineup. I think they went Santana, Dozier, Mauer, Hunter, Vargas. I think Plouffe was after Vargas, Arcia, Suzuki, Schaefer. I think that's probably what it's going to look like. I guess my biggest gripe is about 2-3 weeks ago, Molitor was so adamant about, well, I'm going to try Mauer as your 2-hole hitter and Dozier as your 3-hole hitter and really utilize that right-handed bat and right-handed power, and it lasted all of 3 days. I mean,
do we think Mauer said, no, I don't want to be there?
Yeah.
Does it work like that?
I don't know.
I don't think he's that kind of guy.
I don't think so.
But could
either.
he, if he wanted to be?
Does
because he's $23 million a year? Can he just say that?
Kind of stroke? I think he would have that kind of stroke.
But if he refused to go to place in the batting, or number one, he's not that kind of an asshole. And number two, Molitor would tell him to fuck himself.
Molitor is obviously a bigger name in baseball than Mauer, so I think he could pull that on him.
And Molitor's clearly setting down some guidelines.
Yeah, I was going to say with the Aaron Hicks thing, I mean, it seems like he is going to be, firm on the way he believes. It seems odd to throw out that you're open to that and go with it for 2 or 3 days.
Well, that's what we've never seen something in the game where we've gone, nope, that doesn't work. Let's not try that. It's talked about every year, and then it just disappears. And that's why I think maybe Mauer just like, no, I don't like the 2-hole. I don't do that.
The one part, and I know we touched on it when we were talking about Molitor making that move, is that 2-hole.
2-hole.
Is that Mauer goes on the ground to the right side, and he goes opposite in the air. And, with a guy on base, you don't want him hitting into any more double plays. That is way overemphasized, by the way. Mauer does not hit into that many double plays. I looked at it a couple days ago. He was 96th in the league last year, which plenty high, but not as bad as people think. But Dozier with 2 guys on base is a lot more of an asset than he is with Danny Santana getting out and hitting solo home runs, or even batting leadoff and hitting solo home runs. It just...
Well, I mean, but again, you can't look at a batting order linearly.
This is true.
It's a cycle. I mean, if you've got a couple of guys at the 8-9 spot who can get on base, I mean, you guys. I mean, and that's I've always wondered, how come you always have such fast guys batting ninth? Well, because you don't want them clogging the bases for your leadoff. I mean, it's just you have to look at it circularly rather than what's the word I'm looking for?
Linearly.
Well, I know linear is the word, not linearly. Linear is just the word.
Well, in a linear fashion.
Linearly would be the adverb, I believe.
I don't know if that's a word.
Speaking of luxury in the batting order, if the Twins get any sort of production out of Jordan Schaefer like they did last year, I would be shocked and think that they are in a great spot. I don't see that for
it's not going to happen just because, I mean, look at what he was doing when he got cut by the Braves. I mean, he's in like $1.60. And then in September, he went back to that. It was his August that was crazy and so atypical. And the weird thing is he was a big-time prospect and just kind of fell flat. I hope that he's someone that can be pushed aside by a guy like Rosario or Hicks. Gets his head on straight, hits 400 in April and comes up. But at this point, you just got to roll with it.
It is a Twins Tuesday. It is Jeff Dubay, Brandon Warren, Ted Schwetzler, Jason McGovern. Quick break. Come back. Talk a little bit about the weirdness of Doug Minkiewicz. I mean, he bugged me when he's a player because he was just so intense that he was kind of an asshole. He's not been in the minor leagues long enough to feel as bad as he does about being beaten up by Paul Molitor for a job.
With Suhan Unfiltered, sports columnist for the Minneapolis Star-Tribune, Jim Suhan presents in-depth conversations with the best writers and sports personalities in the area. Suhan brings professional journalism flavor without the verbal censoring. Find out what unfiltered really means. Only on the Alive and Social Network. SuhanUnfiltered.com.
Reach for this one.
Just when you thought it was safe to go back online,
Just turn it on. That took a very PG direction.
along comes this hit show.
I'm constantly burping on stage.
Hey, you heard about Madonna, right?
Twin Cities Hit Show with Rusty, Courtney, and Chuck.
Had she fallen to the ground and her eyes rolled into the back of her head, what would you, Tim Mahoney, have done?
I'd have tried to make out with her.
Nice.
Get in line.
The Twin Cities Hit Show with Rusty, Courtney, and Chuck airs live daily, 9:30 to 10:30 on the Alive and Social Network.
Ever swallowed a bug or choke like Courtney on stage?
Yeah.
I meant to do this.
We're back. So this past week, I mean, Mankiewicz wasn't grousing, so I'm being kind of a dick about it. But he talked about how, I think his exact words were how crushed. He was crushed and devastated by not getting the job. And I mean, he certainly was a legitimate contender. He certainly had a chance. But number one, he did get a promotion, and he is, basically tutoring the two most valuable prospects in the organization up through the minor leagues, the three really, and they're keeping him with them. And at some point, he's going to be up here with them. I think that everybody knows that. But I don't know how you. I mean, I'm glad you're a competitive guy. You got fire, but how can you be like crushed by losing out to Paul Molitor in that situation? The writing was on the wall.
And I guess at this point, what are you trying to accomplish? The decision's made, kind of like the Pelfrey comments. What's going to come out of that? Move forward with the season. Like I said, off air here, he's almost got a more important job than Molitor does this season, because if those guys flop, they're on your watch right now. I mean, that is the face of the organization for years to come. So I get it. Be mad. But be mad when you lost out and make those comments when you lost out, and you're days away from opening day. Move on.
I think he's still the manager in waiting, like a Jason Garrett was in Dallas with the NFL. But I don't even think he finished second. Wasn't Torey Lovullo probably
Correct.
actually?
Yeah, probably.
Actually, the more preferred candidate ahead of Mankiewicz. So.
And both of those guys have something on him. I mean, they were both at the major league level already.
Yeah. And I mean, you're losing out to a Hall of Famer with a great mind and a lot of equity in the organization. I don't think there's anything to be upset about. I wonder if somebody just kind of put a recorder in front of his face and he.
Well, I don't want to be misunderstood. He wasn't a dick about it.
Yeah,
but his level of emotion was caught me off guard. But he's always been a really, really weirdly intense guy. For a corner infielder who couldn't hit his way out of a paper bag. I mean, he's just weirdly intense is the best way to describe him. Really easy to piss off. You never wanted to really be around him or talk to him. I didn't anyway.
That's funny how quickly too that's been regarded as his personality as a manager too. I mean. Last year we heard that during the managerial search that Molitor's more that laid back, thought processing, intelligent mind, and Mankiewicz is more that. Well, do the Twins want to go with this guy that's a bit more off the cuff and very open to speak whatever he's thinking?
Yeah, I mean, which do you want mentoring impressionable young players? A guy that's going to flip out on them when they ask how or what to do, or I think that they have seen what they like from him at Fort Myers, and if he started in the minor, you think of an intense guy might be a better like veteran manager. Obviously, he did some right things in Fort Myers with some pretty young guys, and so maybe there is something there, and maybe that's what he's leaning on as his kind of credentials for. I can deal with the young players, I can handle the young players, and you're going to have a whole pile of them here in the next 3-4 years. But maybe that's the timeline that they're expecting to. Paul Molitor to kind of be the caretaker, and he'll step aside, and then they'll be looking again. I don't know what the internal organization plans are, and if they're set on sticking with Molitor for a long stretch of time like they have done with the last few managers or what. But I'm not sure what the direction is that they're really looking to do with this thing.
I found the article and the quotes. He says, "I'm crushed. I thought I was ready." He paused before continuing, and the competitive fire that Mankiewicz has played through 12 Major League seasons came out to the surface. He says, "If I'm worried about where I'm going, I'm losing focus on why I'm here. I'm here for them. I lived the dream. I want them to feel what I felt, but I want them to feel what I felt on a winning club. No disrespect, but those guys up there have no idea what it's like to win. My guys have an idea of what it's like to win and to finish something. That doesn't go away." And then, Chip said, so he wants to change the negative culture of 4 consecutive 90-loss seasons. Mankiewicz's response, correctamundo, like he's the Fonz or something. But, I mean, again, he says no disrespect, but he kind of takes a shot at the...
Oh, that was a big shot, I'd say.
Yeah.
You guys lost, you have no idea what you're doing. Great. If you're helping them win on the farm, that means that you're going to be part of the reason that they win at the major league level. I don't, like I said, I don't understand where that frustration or that kind of a shot has a place to advance anything.
And this makes him look worse to other clubs too, right? If they were thinking about ever hiring him, I mean, this just makes him look like a whiner, doesn't it?
The strange thing is, think about the power structure that was in place just last year. Are you saying those guys never won before? I mean, think about it. Gardenhire won how many division
Yeah.
crowns? Terry Ryan has presided over how many World Series winners, whether it was as a GM or over in the organization. He's been in the organization for 30 years. So
it allows you to think of it in the context that, you know what, you won at Fort Myers, you won a series championship at Fort Myers last year. So now are you saying that because of that small track record as a manager, you're more capable than, the guy that has been there for 13 years because he had 4 bad seasons?
Right.
Or is it that he won a World Series with the Red Sox?
Well, that too.
And stole the ball.
I mean,
Still hate him for that.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? I mean, is that something that he's not saying but is saying, like kind of under the radar? I don't know.
Well, and he seems to take himself a little seriously, especially with some of the quotes. He talks about, the Double-A team is loaded this year. I mean, it's the Fort Myers Miracle, correct? Oh, what's the Double-A team?
Chattanooga Lookouts.
I can't keep up. Chattanooga. Minor league baseball names. You might as well be naming roads in Egan. He says right here, we've gotten a lot of publicity talking about the talent down there, which is well deserved. But now the eyes really start to focus on us, see what they can do with expectations. He says that this team's not going to be together long. Quote, I'm trying to get them to the big leagues. Yeah, Brian Bruxton's going to get to the big leagues. Miguel Sano's going to get to the big. It's not because I mean, don't get me wrong. There's some molding that has to take place. But guess what? Molitor was a roving instructor 2 years ago. He was at every minor league stop. He's had his hand in this too. I mean, it's not like you're not trying to turn some fringe player into a prospect.
And Molitor was there. I mean, he was in the clubhouse quite frequently, even as a non-uniform personnel guy. He was a very obvious influence, even in 2013 when I was there. He would be there a lot, and the guys that gravitated to him, you'd be surprised, were a lot of the Hispanic guys. He'd get in there, and they'd all get up, and it was like, boom, got to go talk to Molly. So there's obviously some level of respect there that Minkiewicz needs to gain in terms of equity, and whether that's in time, whether that's winning more. I'm not exactly sure how you would go about doing that, but I think you lost out to the better man, and it's time to just kind of deal with it.
I think as far as...
his time will come.
Well, and I think as far as you talking about prospects too and pushing them along, you have to tie yourself to guys maybe that you can claim a little bit more for. Like you just said, a Buxton and a Sano, they don't need you. Whether it's you, Gene Glynn, whoever, they're going to be in the show. If you can make a Mike Vasnica that actually just Kwasnica, sorry, that just got released, I believe.
Yep.
But somebody like that, a fringe prospect now.
If you could turn Aaron Hicks into a player,
Aaron Knutz or Kyle Knutson, those kind of guys, not in the organization either anymore. But those kind of guys get to the major leagues. Fine, put your hand on that. You did something to get them there. A top prospect doesn't need you. To a certain extent.
But again, it sounds like he takes himself a little too seriously when he says, I will poke and pry and prod and antagonize. I'm provoking to get a reaction. I want to see fire that they didn't know they had. I'm sure I've said some things to them that no one ever has said to them. I'm hard, but I'm fair and I'm honest. I mean, he just sounds kind of like he's a bullshit slugger to me. Although this is a good moment here. He gave his team a day off. Said, but you better come back sharp after the day off. And they came back and they were kicking around her in infield just like a bunch of idiots. And Sano brought the whole team together and just lit them up. And Minkiewicz's quote was, "There's your leader." So I mean, it's cool that they got young guys with that kind of makeup coming up.
Yeah, I mean, it's not really a characteristic of what you see with this team. There's a lot of quiet guys, a lot of guys that quick out of the clubhouse at the end of the game and not really want to talk to the media. So it's a change of pace, and that's what they'd like to see.
He talks about the fact that Buxton's kind of the quieter guy. So Buxton and Sano they could be playing together for the next 15 years. So if Buxton's going to be quiet, I think it's cool that Sano's that stand up in the clubhouse kind of a guy. I mean, Mauer never was. Torrey Hunter is, thank God. Eddie Guardado is, thank God. But I didn't get through this whole story before. This is crazy stuff in here. It's interesting stuff. He's talking about Buxton. This kid was bawling his eyes out in center field last year when he hurt himself because he thought he was letting everybody down. And I don't mean his team. I mean the whole entire organization. That you don't get every day. Well, that's kind of cool. But I mean, again, I think at times Buxton pushes himself a little too hard physically, a little recklessly. And that's not necessarily a good thing.
We talked about that back in February on the preseason show, and I think that
was the preseason.
Yeah, and I think that's something that Hunter probably has instilled in him over spring training is, go all out, but be within yourself, too. You look at guys like that, Ken Griffey Jr., there's no doubt that if Ken Griffey Jr. is healthy for the majority of his career and not, hurt the majority of the end of it, he's a completely different player. I mean, the way his career ends is completely different. So, Buxton, you can stay on the field. You're a lot more of an asset than you are on the bench.
I love this here. He says, I was born to do this. If I keep getting the best out of 25 guys, eventually somebody will have enough faith to give me the keys. Now, here's the little twist to all this. I believe they consider Jake Maurer to be managerial timber as well. I mean, someday those two...
And they're close to the same age, aren't they?
Yeah, and Mankiewicz is close with Joe. I mean, they were teammates. I mean, there's a lot of little tentacles to this thing.
Yeah, there's a lot of layers that'll potentially get weird. But, as long as you got competition, it means you're going to have the chance to pick the best guy, and it should be a good leader. And don't forget, we don't know how long Paul Molitor wants to do the job for.
I was going to say, you're overlooking what might be a great manager. We don't even know, and we would
he,
hope
he might manage for a decade.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh, was he 59?
He's born in 56.
He's pretty old for his first job.
So he'll be 60 next year.
So he's 50. Thanks for doing the math on that for me. So if he's 59, he'll be 60 next year. He'll be 61 in 2 years.
What did Gardy retire at?
I have no idea. Weight or age.
Wow. They were both up there.
I mean, Gardy put on a lot of weight as Twins manager.
Yeah. He
might have been a stress eater. It happens.
Well, he's not. He's about the same age as Molitor, I think.
Right now?
I think he was born in the late 50s.
Okay. I thought he was older.
All I know is a major league manager shouldn't live in Little Canada. I got a lot of respect for that. I mean, seriously. I mean, you're making bank. I mean, you're a big league manager. You live in Little Canada. Are you kidding me? Do you have a gun in your glove compartment? Little Canada. Jesus Christ, the big Canada is bad enough. We got a little one down here. It's Little Canada. Whatever. It's Roseville. Stop calling it Little Canada. Anyway, it's Twins Tuesday. We've got about a half hour to go in the show with Brandon Warren, Ted Schwetzler, Jason McGovern. I'm Jeff Dubay. Why do I keep reintroducing the show? You don't have to do that.
Radio habit.
Yeah, it is. I mean, in a podcast, people who are listening have been listening from the beginning. They've known who you are for 30 minutes.
Yeah, they didn't pick it up halfway through the stream unless they clicked something
they
by
just
mistake.
they just jump in their car and jump into the middle of the show where you need the reintros. I can't get past that. Let's take a look at just a couple other notes, news. Let's talk about the Pelfrey thing for a second. Wasn't predictable when you're reading the blow up quotes. Didn't you know he'd come back sheepish the next day and be, I'm gonna take the ball, I'm gonna do my job. I mean, I would have bet everything on it.
I think to a certain extent you have to do that if you have any sort of intention of those quotes being real. I mean, nobody wants to trade for a guy that's malcontent either. So,
or who flat out isn't good.
Yeah, so you want to come out and, okay, I'll assume my role on this team and whatever. And if somebody reaches out, then you have a little bit more, weight to carry there.
And Terry Ryan was no nonsense about it. I mean, he just said over and over again, we've been really good to him.
Yeah,
we've given him a lot of money for 5 wins. Yeah, I mean,
Terry gets the deal. He gets the general idea. And the thing is, you had to know that with 4 guys competing, even if you pitched well, you still might not have a crack at it. And Pelfrey, he's just better suited for the bullpen at this point, and it's going to be a good move for him. I think I wrote about it pretty much at length yesterday. I think he's going to see a resurgence in his fastball. He'll pick a secondary pitch, whether it's a slider or his curve, and he'll go to battle and be a nice piece for the Twins this year. And it'll be water under the bridge. The weird thing is, it was out of character for him. He's a very unassuming, very quiet guy, and it just was like, okay, is this just a little frustration boiling over? And this is a guy who's had a lot of frustration in his career, whether it's
injury,
pitching in New York and not being very, very, very good there, injuries, and then trying to come back from the injury. Obviously he struggled through that 2013 season with mixed results. So it's humanizing to see him be frustrated like that. But at the same time, if you haven't been very good and you start pointing the finger, the finger better be pointing right back at you, and that's. Again, you can't really point yourself and say, I should have pitched better in the spring. I gave up like 3 earned runs. So you can't really say that. But it's
your body of work at that point.
Yeah, so it's just like, well, what do you do?
I think that makes it a little bit miscalculated, too, because you look at it and you say that you have these 4 guys going into spring training all competing for this role. To a certain extent, you have to look at it as, the Twins see me as the one guy that can pitch out of the bullpen.
Well, that's the thing.
Like we touched on, Tommy Malone's not an option for the bullpen. You don't really want to move Alex Meyer or Trevor May there until you need to know if they're a reliever, they're a failed starter. So at that point, why aren't you looking at him saying, hey, they're going to let me pitch out this $5.5 million contract as a bullpen player, and what can I do to make sure that I get enough out of it?
Well, they talked about the positive meeting with Terry Ryan, and I can promise you right now that they didn't go in there and hug it out. Terry Ryan basically gave him a version of, we're not saying Tommy Malone's a better pitcher than you. We're saying we're a better team with him in the starting rotation, you in the bullpen, and that's all this is about. That makes us a better team. I mean, I guarantee you, Terry Ryan gave him a version of that.
I'm sure it was just, son, this is what we're going to do, and it was firm, but it wasn't like flipping out because I don't think I've ever seen Terry Ryan raise his voice. But it was
he's like a stern grandpa.
Yeah, it was like, son, this is what's going to happen because this is what's best for the team, and we think this is what's best for what you can do right now. And the thing is, you get with Pelfrey, back-end starters last in the league longer, and they make more money, but not always. I mean, some relievers, they just get it, and maybe he'll land a 3-year deal if he has a really nice season this year. And
I promise you, Wade Davis is making more money going forward if he continues to relieve like he did than if Pelfrey goes into the rotation and pitches.
Yeah,
like
once he gets out of that contract that he signed as a starter. Yeah, I mean, there are some good relievers that make quite a bit more money than bad starters, and so it's a bit of self-awareness, and even if it's hard to be honest with yourself about where you're at. Because keep in mind, Pelfrey was a fantastic pitcher at Wichita State, number 9 overall pick. He spent his whole life being pretty freaking awesome. So it's hard to come to grips with at 31 years old, you haven't been awesome for a few years now, and it's time to do something different. And so, and you can be awesome again if you just assume a reduced role. Well, that's a hard pill to swallow.
Looking back at the week that was that Nolasco's last game? The 2 homers? They got one more.
They all have one more.
They all
Except
have one
Malone.
more? Okay.
Malone pitched today. He's done.
Okay. But it looks like some guys are getting it fine-tuned at the right time. I mean,
Malone looked good today. I watched the whole game today. I was
you're
not
a nerd.
He threw a lot of pitches today, though, didn't
It
he?
was like 94 and 6 innings, I think.
Yeah,
but then you're trying to wrap
was
up like that. That's all right.
He was at, I want to say it was 60 through 4 and
Yeah.
looked ugly, and
Yeah.
he did get through 6 at 94. I think he had a 5 or 6 pitch 5th inning. I mean, he bounced back. It wasn't an efficient start by any means, but to get through 6 was some work on his
60
end.
through 4 is not too bad. I mean, you can do 15 an inning. That's 105. No, you can't. Well, yeah, it's a little heavy. It's 105 by the
And
7th.
going into the 4th, I think he was around 30. I mean, it was an ugly 4th inning. He was laboring.
Yeah, well, I mean, and if you're throwing balls and just slowing down the game, and shit,
Yeah.
that's gonna drive the manager nuts. Any of the position battles? I mean, you talked a lot about moves, but we haven't talked to be specific.
What do you have yet, Brandon, Jeff? On I don't see any way I don't want Pinto on the roster. I mean, even though he's coming back from a concussion, Chris Herman offers you some versatility, but I feel like we already have enough automatic outs. I don't like Jordan Schaefer as a hitter. I don't like Shane Robinson as a hitter. Eduardo Nunez is not a capable major league player anymore. I don't want Chris Herman on the roster.
He's one of these guys who does a lot of different things for you, and he's there to pinch. But I mean, Pinto's got pop. I mean,
right. Well, and I get that he's coming back from a concussion, but he's played in 2 games.
Well, they've cleared him. Yeah.
Yeah, he's played in 2 games. He hasn't been on the major league side yet. They were both minor league games. He hit a home run today. I still don't. I think it was Rhett Bollinger had a story going into spring training that Terry Ryan was saying the reason that they kept Pinto down was because of his bat last year. I don't buy that at all. I mean, his bat played just fine in AAA. He threw nobody out
he's
as
not
a
a good
catcher.
catcher.
He's a horrid catcher,
Yeah.
and that's why he was down. Don't sell it on his bat. Don't keep him off the roster
Well,
because of his
let's
bat.
send a message to him. We want better at bat.
You just got to be realistic about it. I mean, he's not a good catcher at all.
No,
and that's not his long-term position probably, but there's no way you don't want that bat at your disposal somewhere throughout the day.
Barring a setback, I don't see any way he doesn't go either AAA or Major Leagues. I don't see a disabled list stint because the Twins are pretty adamant that they're not going to manipulate the disabled list and there's no reason to manipulate it to make a decision on him because there's no decision impending. You don't have to,
they can't
DFA him or
backdate
anything.
it
You
anymore
can't-
either,
Yeah,
right?
I mean, there's no need to do anything other than bring him up if he's ready or send him down if you don't think he can help you. But there's nothing that he does that Chris Herman does better, and so it doesn't make now. If you're worried about finding time for him, that's one thing. But then you went ahead and signed a 2-year deal with Suzuki. There's nothing that really adds up to keep Pinto off this team, barring a setback, unless the Twins have just truly soured on him, and that would be extremely discouraging, given how good he's been at AAA the last season or two, and how he's progressed through the ranks.
And I think the opportunities are going to open themselves up a little bit throughout the season. Last year, Kurt Suzuki was afforded a lot more time because of how he hit. He's not a great defensive catcher by any means, and when you bat at an all-star level, you're going to play.
Well, in the second half, he struggled.
Right.
He was
and that's,
very bad on the
And that's
stretch.
Kurt Suzuki as a catcher. I mean, he's a mediocre hitter. He's a mediocre catcher. And so if that's what you have, and you have a guy that has a plus bat in Pinto, there's no way you don't find time for him.
They're not going to add Fryer to the roster. I don't think there's a move they can
No,
make
I
right
think
now.
it's Herman or Pinto.
Yep. I don't think there's a move that they can do right now to add Fryer to the roster. So that doesn't make any sense because they've already taken the guys off the 40 that they are okay with doing. I think you can still do that with Aaron Thompson, but that doesn't make sense to
He
do
was
that.
option. Oh,
They-
yeah.
I mean, off the 40.
Yep.
I don't think they'll take Thompson off there, so it doesn't make a lot of sense to move a bunch of pieces around for a guy who should be up there, and hopefully the Twins see that. But Pinto is not much further down the road than Hicks when we really think about it in terms of how the organization probably sees them on their curve. So nothing would surprise me. I don't necessarily want to see Herman up at the big league club, but if on opening day in Detroit a week from, what was it, yesterday?
Yep.
If he's in Detroit, it would not stun me.
All right, we're going to take our final break, come back, and just kind of one last run through the Twins roster, what it's going to look like on opening day, just kind of fun, final couple pieces, and a quick look at the Central. All right, we'll come back and take care of that next.
What are you drinking tonight, Jason?
The Minnesota Pubcast with Jason and Molly.
I'm drinking a Liftbridge Hop Dish.
It's Pub Talk from a Minnesotan perspective.
I'm always really proud of where I'm from. I'm super proud of Minnesota, and I think Minneapolis is awesome. I think St. Paul is awesome. I think they're a really awesome cultural epicenter.
With great local guests.
So the other voice you hear in the room today is Jerry Fagerberg from the City Pages. Talk about the official Minnesota Tall Boy, which your piece is on the cover of the City Pages today.
It is on the cover, came out today.
Talking movies.
All right, you saw Boyhood. I need to hear what you thought.
Oh, man.
Wow.
Sports.
A guy who was undrafted knew what was coming.
And everything else you talk about at the pub.
Let's not pretend like we know what we're talking about.
Well, what do you think I do every show?
The Minnesota Pubcast with Jason McGovern and Molly Burke. Listen at mnpubcast.com or subscribe on iTunes.
We want to just find meaning in life.
Hi, I'm Terry Daniel, and I've been a voice actor in Minneapolis for over 2 decades now. How often are you getting compliments on your voice? Now is the time to do something about it. If you're interested in getting into voiceovers, please contact me via my website at universalvoicetalent.com.
When I get to the bottom, I go back to the top of the slide. Where I stop and I turn and I go for a ride. Till I get to the bottom and I see you again. Yeah.
Quick reminder: tomorrow, Wild Wednesday, Jordan Leopold will be on the program. We're gonna tape it at 12:30. Gonna be driving home from the rink, so we're gonna have him on. We're gonna have him on cell phone. You be all right with that, McGovern? I mean, I know we have an anti-cell phone policy, but we're getting Leo, so you can be okay.
We've only really had one problem with the cell phone so far.
Yeah, it was that idiot from North Dakota.
Yep.
No, I'm
There
just
you go.
kidding.
There you go.
No, I'm just kidding. Stefan Patton, he did a hell of a job for us, and he's on his way to the Frozen Four. So, last laugh. He got it. He gets it. But again, just quickly running through the roster. We know the rotation. We've known the rotation forever. Run through the bullpen. Give me the roles.
Well, you got Perkins and Fiend in the back end.
Duh.
And
he starts with Perkins.
And,
thanks.
Well, because if I start at the front,
and then Ted get the garbage.
If I start at the front, I'll get lost. I mean, at the front you've got J.R. Graham, you got Pelfrey, you got Blaine Boyer.
The Graham kid's impressive, isn't he?
Yeah, he's been real good. And then Blaine Boyer, they just added to the roster, and so then you got Dunsing. And
I haven't seen him pitch yet. Is Jared Graham white?
Yeah.
Graham Cracker. Yes.
Oh my God.
Stirrups too.
Just whatever.
He's got the high stirrups.
Thank you very much.
And so that leaves us with somebody I'm missing.
Pelfrey, Graham,
Stoffer.
There you go.
Boyer.
Because I think they'll send Thielbar back, which is
Thielbar will go back.
Thielbar sounds like a part of a motorcycle. Fucked up my Thielbar, man. What about a bump? I mean, doesn't it? I mean, I don't know. Whatever.
There's one. I can't think of who it is. They sent out
Thompson
today, and Thielbar is with one other person. I thought still competing for the.
I don't believe so.
No,
I think he's
it's just
basically out.
Thielbar. Yeah, it's Thielbar, Stauffer, and Graham competing for 2 spots, and Stauffer and Graham are going to.
Of course, Dunsing has been there forever, and he still sucks. But
he got lit up the other night by the Red Sox.
He does nothing for me.
No, me neither.
Mike
There was a time.
Mike Napoli hit a broken bat home run off him last night.
Roids. Give me the infield position by position and a couple of utility guys.
I'd say catcher. You got Suzuki going around as Mauer, Dozier.
Oh boy,
Escobar, Plouffe. I think. I'm sorry, Santana, Plouffe. I think probably Escobar sees the most time as a utility guy in the infield. Unfortunately, Nunez is probably going to make the roster. I would be more apt to have them pick somebody up off of waivers that has been jettisoned. I saw Viciedo actually got dropped today by the Blue Jays. I would rather have him on our roster than Nunez, but I think he's probably going to make the club.
Yeah, Nunez, 25th man glue guy, can play a little infield, can play a little outfield. Doesn't really hit, doesn't really defend, and so it's a fluid spot that they could make a move if they needed to. But they do like to have a guy that can stand at shortstop, and that's about what he does.
I think it'll be the time of the show where we make fun of the Tigers. I mean, when you look at the Central, the Central is not coastal. It's central. So, I mean, we don't have the giant markets. I mean, Chicago and Detroit are the two that spend the most money. I don't think anybody's come close to Detroit in this division recently for financial resources. I mean, they've put a ton of money into that club, and they never got it. They never understood that you had to have something in the back end of your bullpen that you could rely on. I mean, they have flamethrowers. No, I mean, their window's closing, if it's not closed already. And, I mean, they were the best team in baseball, I would argue, for 3 years. And they didn't get shit done because they didn't have anybody reliable in the back end. They had guys who could throw hard, but they were idiots. I mean, it's like they went out and tried to find the dumbest people they could to be in their. I mean, like just flaky, guys who would just melt down. I mean, Joe Zamaya got hurt playing video games. I mean, originally,
and now they're relying on post-apocalyptic Joe Nathan,
who is now
really?
also
That's right.
and
second year post-apocalyptic.
Yeah, he blew
Joe
up
Nathan.
last year. Now he's also. I saw today he's dealing with outside game stuff. I guess he said something about how he hates fans and he thinks fans are dumb or something because of the fact that he sucks and they're coming after him, and now he's backing off from those comments, saying that they're an integral part of his game and blah blah.
Well, you'd think that somebody who's been around long enough, like him, would be smart enough. I mean, fans. There are a lot of fans that are idiots, but you just don't say shit like that.
And when you suck, I mean, expect to get booed. He's bad.
Well, I mean, the guy had Tommy John at 38 or whatever the hell it was, 37. I mean, I wasn't sure he'd ever pitch again. But.
Yeah, he came back. He was actually really good for the Rangers for a while too. So he's basically on borrowed time, and he's struggled the last couple years. He's not throwing as hard as he used to. The curve doesn't snap like it used to, and he's making big bucks from the Tigers. They haven't had a good closer. I mean, Valverde had a nice little year for him a couple years ago, but Chamberlain struggled down the stretch last year. They went and got Joaquim Soria.
And then they're banking on Rondon, too, who I think, didn't he have Tommy John surgery last year? I'm pretty sure he blew out his elbow.
He throws 100 miles an hour, but with pretty
all
much
over the place.
no idea where it's going. And Al Albuquerque's same deal there. And
Phil Koch's not there anymore.
Still hard to believe that's a real person. Sounds like a character from Major League, Al Albuquerque.
Yeah, or cartoons, Take a left turn at Albuquerque.
Yeah, that too. So, who, other than Kansas, I mean, I'm not sure Kansas City's going to be that good this year. I mean, who's the class of the division?
That's your fifth team in the AL Central.
Yeah, I mean,
I will
they
go on
unloaded,
record.
didn't they?
I will go on record. The Kansas City Royals are finishing last in the division. I don't think they lose 90 games, but they're going to go to. I just think they've gotten bad.
Don't just tell me what's going to happen. Tell me why.
Billy I don't like Morales replacing Billy Butler. I think that their rotation has a ton of questions. Giordano Ventura is good.
No, Shields is gone. That guy was a bulldog.
And he wasn't great in the postseason, but I think Giordano Ventura has a lot on his shoulders. Danny Duffy has to really come around, and I think he will, but I hate Edison Volquez in their rotation. I don't think he's a great starter. I just think they're going to have more problems, and Rios in the outfield, that takes away a good defender. I mean, I think that they're going to have more problems than they do answers this year.
What it's all going to hinge on for me is how quickly the acquisitions in Chicago gel together, and if that bit is ready, if their bullpen is good, if they bring up Rodon early in the season, that's going to be the team to beat. I hate it when the White Sox are good. I know, I do too, and I like Cleveland more than Ted does. I know that for sure because I like their rotation, but there's no shortage of question marks there. They sent Danny Salazar back in favor of TJ House, and they've got some question marks in that rotation too in terms of can they repeat the success they had down the stretch. They got a pretty decent bullpen. Their offense is not too bad, not too good.
I think a lot of their offense, wouldn't you agree, a lot of their offense hinges on what they get out of Swisher and Kipnis this year.
He's
a tool.
Kipnis needs to bounce back. You need Swisher to bounce back.
Yeah.
Bourne needs to bounce back. You need Lonnie Chisenhall to be as good as he was last year. You need Michael Brantley to be as good as he was last year.
Brandon Moss has to give you what he gave Oakland.
Yep, and I'm missing somebody too. Did I say Carlos Santana?
No.
Yeah, you need Carlos.
And he was good down the stretch, but he was atrocious to start this season. So.
I like everybody in the division to some degree. I think the Twins probably still finish fifth. I do think, though, that the Royals will be under 500. I think it's going to be a pretty bad year for them, too, because the inevitable bullpen regression that should hit is going to be tough on them, too. And I don't see it as a team that's going to contend. But I think your top three is some form of Chicago, Cleveland, Detroit. If I had to pick one out of a hat right now, I'm going to buy the White Sox, and I hate saying that.
Is Sale healthy? Is he healthy?
He threw today. He's supposed to be back within the first couple weeks.
Yeah, so I hate buying the White Sox, but I'm on. I love
that's kind of where
I love what they're doing, and I don't want to.
That's kind of where I'm at too, and I think if the Twins do weasel their way in, it will be at the expense of a Tigers or Indians. I think that the White Sox probably have the best chance to put it together. But like Brandon said, the AL Central should be a lot of fun to watch this year because I don't see anybody winning 90 games, and I don't see anybody losing 90 games.
I think
it's going to be close.
I think the Twins are a 76 win team right now.
Yeah, right around the bottom of. Or right around that 90-game plateau, but they're going to beat up on each other.
Yep.
There's not enough separation. Like you said, Jeff, the Tigers are not scary anymore. The White Sox are contingent upon how they gel. The Indians everybody has questions.
How outrageous? Just on another topic, there's still some baseball stuff around. How outrageous is Washington's rotation?
So good.
It's unbelievable.
Well, yeah, they bumped Tanner Roark, who's.
They could afford to give away Jordan Zimmerman.
Yeah.
Really.
They'll end up letting him walk and collecting draft pick compensation for him at the end of the year. And this is their year because you got Zimmerman who's going to walk, and then you've got the infielder, the shortstop. I can't think.
Desmond.
Yeah, Ian Desmond, who's going to walk at the end of the year.
I did see today though that
and Denard Span too.
They did lose Anthony Rendon again or longer today. He's looking at knee injury, and they are without Span.
Yeah, so Span's out for the first month or so.
Yeah, I think till May.
So he's a free agent season too. So there's going to be some different things going on. I know they're bringing up a guy. I think it's Michael Taylor to play center field that they really like a lot, and they've got some guys they really like to fill in at second short, middle infield as things move forward. But this is their year because they probably don't see it that way because they signed Scherzer to such a long deal. But they've got everything lined up just perfectly. The rest of the division's not very good. The Phillies stink. The Mets are on the up and up. The Braves are going to be terrible.
The Marlins
are going to be tough. But in a division that's usually top to bottom pretty tough, that's an easier division this year than in most years. And this is a chance to win 100 games.
And I can't remember who it was right after Scherzer was signed, which that deal is silly, especially backdating it. That deal is nuts. But right after that deal was signed, somebody brought up the fact that you almost have to win 2 or 3 World Series within the first 5 years to make that make sense. So I think that they go into the next couple of years with that pressure that they have to win. Something I can't wrap my head around that somebody brought up with this Chris Bryant news. How crazy is it that Bryce Harper is like 2 or 3 years younger than Chris Bryant?
He's a 1 full year younger.
Okay.
Almost a full year younger.
But he's gotten in 2 full major leagues. That is nuts. Mm-hmm. It's crazy.
That is. When you're in the big leagues, you're not legal drinking age. That's
like
people got to watch you in the club. Hey, stay away from the beer cooler.
It's crazy.
Like he's less than a year older than Byron Buxton.
When they won their division, could they literally? They can't hand him a bottle of champagne, can they? Is that legal?
I don't think so.
Seriously,
I don't think there's an asylum inside. It's like when.
I know that there's teams that have guys in recovery. They just do the fake champagne.
Well, like Jim Leland would smoke in the Twins clubhouse. Maybe there's.
Jim Leland smokes in dugouts.
Yeah, maybe there's temporary asylum. I don't know, but far be it from me to know the legal rules of each.
One of my brothers got tanked after Game 7 in '91. He was 15 years old. So that was a little sketchy. We had to get him out the back door. It was a little sketchy. I'm not going to lie to you.
Oh man.
So who do you like this year? American National, give me all.
The American League is an absolute dog pile. There's probably like 10 teams that can all
dog pile. Like poop?
No, like all these teams fighting and
that's a hog pile. I know. I hate that thing. What is up with that thing?
I think it's a dog pile.
Okay, well, whatever.
Anyway, so I like
dog pile. Dog fight. Maybe.
You guys. Okay, I like Seattle. I really do like Seattle. I think they're going to do some good things. I don't love anybody in the East. I think Boston needs to win just to justify the spending spree they went on. I think their rotation is not very good.
My least favorite team in baseball.
Right.
I fucking hate them.
Yeah, there's just nothing coming out of the East that's going to be real strong. Now that Toronto's missing Stroman, I thought Toronto had a chance to make a run. I like Seattle. Their rotation's stacked with young guys and Felix Hernandez, who still won't be 30 until next year.
That's also crazy.
Which is insane. He's been in the big leagues this is his 12th big league season. And so I like Seattle. I think the Angels are going to be tough. Coming out of the Central, whoever comes out of the Central will be battle tested because of the gauntlet it'll take to get to that point. But I think you're looking at a team from the West that's going to emerge victorious. And then in the National League, you got to love the Nationals. But if I was going to have a sleeper, the Cardinals are going to be good too. My sleeper would probably be the Marlins. I think the Marlins did some really cool stuff this offseason. They got Matt Latos from the Reds, who's going to be fantastic in that ballpark. Going from a crazy ballpark in Cincinnati to a pitcher's paradise in Miami. I think the Marlins could do some damage.
Do you consider Stanton one of the top 5 hitters in baseball yet?
Yes.
He's a beast.
Yeah,
Monster.
and just crazy. I mean, the amount of power that guy has is unbelievable. I think
hate their stadium though. Jeez,
oh, it's so goofy. I went there the year it opened, and I
build a new stadium and fuck it up. Nobody fucks up.
I got so much crap on Twitter when I said that it's a garbage stadium. I went there the week it opened. It looked dirty. The whole thing looks like it's got construction tape on it. It's a terrible stadium. It's a gimmicky garbage hole.
Guess what, Miami? Not everything has to be turquoise and orange.
Yes. Yeah, it's so goofy.
You're allowed to have things that just look normal once in a while.
It's
just
so
because you're
goofy.
Miami. It's just
the nicest part about that stadium is the thing outside of it. I mean, beyond the glass, you see
the city.
You see Miami Beach. That's the only part that's nice. It's in Little Havana, for crying out loud.
Hey, what are you trying to say? Sounds racist to me. Is that racist to you, Jason?
A little bit.
But AL team, I would go with Brandon. I think whoever is in the World Series for the AL, I think it comes out of the West. I like the Angels a little bit more than I like the Mariners, but I mean, they're kind of a crapshoot too. Josh Hamilton, losing him isn't that big of a deal. He hasn't been a real productive major league player for a while now. But I think Pujols has a bounce back year, helps them out. Their rotation has definite question marks. What you get back from Garrett Richards this year is going to be tough. But the NL, I'm probably with Brandon as far as the sleeper. I like the Marlins, and I think it's kind of the same situation. I think that, the NL East? Yeah, I think they produce the World Series team too. I like the Dodgers and obviously what they've spent, but they just don't seem to put it together, and you only have Clayton Kershaw once every 3 games in the playoffs. So
that's the thing. How do you beat the power arms of the Nationals in a playoff series?
Yeah, I mean, you
the
can't
Dodgers
beat them
Nationals would be Titans colliding. And yeah, I mean,
you see a lot of 2-1 games.
Oh yeah, that would be a pitcher's paradise.
The back end of their rotation's not out of the woods either, with Ryu being injured, and then Brett Anderson. Anytime you're counting on Brett Anderson is scary.
Yeah, and they've spent in odd places. They've really loaded up on the offense.
Oliveira, the guy from Cuba.
Yeah, well, and didn't they just? That's the second baseman, right?
Yeah. The guy who. So I read in baseball, like he hasn't tested himself against high velocity pitchers, and he's pulled himself out of games and hasn't played much second base.
What's he playing, slow pitch?
And it's Cuba, so it's you can kind of do as you please.
He has a $1 million clause in his contract too, in case he has a torn UCL, because they don't even know.
Right, for Tommy John surgery. If he has Tommy John surgery, they get him his last year for $1 million. It's such a weird deal.
Yeah,
such a weird deal.
I just don't believe in what the Dodgers are doing. I want to say I think that the Padres will be a playoff team, but
they'll be sneaky.
I don't know. That division's tough, and that blueprint has not worked. I mean, we've seen the Blue Jays, we've seen the Marlins go out and spend, and it blows up in their face. I don't know that necessarily works for the Padres. They've done
coolest
it more
left field porch in baseball.
And don't sleep on the Giants.
Petco looks gorgeous.
Yeah. Can't sleep on the Giants either. I mean, that's the team that just won it all.
Yeah, they don't have the giant panda anymore, though. It's not the same.
He didn't do anything in the regular season.
It doesn't matter. He's the face of a franchise. He has more postseason hits.
It's an odd year. They win an even year, so it doesn't make any difference.
Oh, I didn't even think of that.
I wish that.
So I haven't bothered.
I wish that I would see the Giants go get Alan Craig from Boston. That's made sense since Hunter Pence got hurt, and I'm not sure why they haven't made that move yet. But
I think the Red Sox want something for him. It doesn't make any sense. He's making money, and he was terrible last year.
Well, this is Twins Tuesday. When we're back next week, the season will be going on. Brandon, where can people read you?
105 The Tickets, Cold Omaha, BrandonWarren.com, Fangraphs.com/fantasy, and at Brandon_Warren on Twitter.
Ted?
At TL Schwerz on Twitter, or offthebaggy.blogspot.com.
Pubcast? Turn your mic on.
MNPubcast.com. Yeah, you heard the promo. Get there. See you tomorrow.